I literally am very excited about this. This is an interview I'm going to do with RJ City. Now, I'm, as you know, very honest, so I'm not going to claim that I know everything about him and what's current and hip with wrestling, but I have been exposed to this guy through social media mostly, and then the research I've done on him since then. I find him to be completely fascinating, completely brilliant, completely funny, and none of it really makes sense when it all ties into wrestling, but it totally does at the same time. So I'm just excited. So without further ado, the amazing RJ City.
Hello, thank you. This is so sweet of you.
Oh,
Thank
come on,
you.
man. Wait, it's sweet of you.
Well, it's sweet of both of us.
There we go.
But before we begin, and I don't want to throw you off, I have two things I would like to speak to you about, if that's okay.
Sure.
One, I had also done the research because I can be very neurotic, and I read that you were a PA for Shining Time Station.
Yes.
Did you meet Didi Khan?
Yes, she was the sweetest woman. She gave me like $100 when we rapped for no reason. Amazing. Her and Schemer. There was a character, Schemer. He was terrific. I can't remember his name. And the interesting thing about that, and you'll love this, which was George Carlin was Mr. Conductor, and they would shoot him in what was then blue screen, which is now green screen. I have no idea, as a colorblind man, why that happened. And he was changed from Carlin to Ringo. And as you can see behind me, I'm a Beatles fanatic. So I've got this sort of not nice story, I guess. But so I wasn't, first of all, allowed. The major production part of it closed. And then they brought in Ringo, and he would literally shoot with a very small crew in front of a blue screen. But a lot of the executives and stuff I was still friendly with. So I was very curious about, Ringo, what was he like, blah, blah, blah. Anyways, apparently one guy, a fan, had all three signatures of John, Paul, and George, and he needed Ringo to
the hardest ones to get.
Yeah, yes, especially now. And Ringo wouldn't sign it.
He was too busy trying to find out what Thomas was doing today.
Exactly.
Do you know the storyline reason? How they explained Carlin and Ringo?
No.
They were allegedly Ringo was George Carlin's cousin from the North Pole. That was the explanation.
I remember the woman. She was a British woman who ran the show. She was the executive producer. She bought all of the some reverend guy did all of the original Shining Time with the train.
Right.
He was I can't remember his name either. He wasn't there. I don't know if he was even alive when I was doing that. But she had made so much money, this woman, off of this franchise. And, as Willie Nelson said, I'm never too hip for the money. I'm completely blown away. I barely get by, and I've never figured out how to make a lot of money. So when I see people that do, it blows my mind.
At a certain point, you go, I've lost my morals. I'm fine without the morals, and I still don't have the money. So what is the equation here?
It's exactly true. And you
Second question.
Yes.
Do you recall that we have met before?
Well, I'm going to bring up one of the things I did in researching for this was I watched the documentary on you, which was on YouTube. And I saw you standing in front of Ted Reeves Arena. And that was Tommy Dreamer's horror, whatever
House
it was.
House of Hardcore.
Yeah, House of Hardcore.
Yes.
And I participated in that. And so I thought maybe we had met there, but I don't recall.
Well, not only did we meet there, and that I believe was the only place we met, there is a deleted scene from the documentary when I tell the story of how you bumped me from my spot. He called me. I hadn't really known him at the time. We wrestled a couple shows, and he said, we're in Toronto. I want to do something with you. I think, he enjoyed my promos. I want you to come out like you're a surprise, and it's a non-surprise.
Right.
And you'll come out and say, the surprise is I'm going to sing. So I'll start to sing. Lights go out, lights come on, Rhino, he'll give you the gore. I'm like, this is the best spot ever. So we get to the show. I'm all like, easy breezy. I know my routine. And he's like, no, actually, Spenny is going to do that spot because he's a comedian, he can't wrestle, and you can wrestle, and we
Right.
have another opening where we need to put you. And I was like, just my luck that my spot would get bumped by an actual comedian.
I'm so proud of myself that even when things go well for me, I don't even know. Right? I had no idea that happened. In fact, the one thing I remember was right before I went on, and I guess it's Dreamer's sense of humor. He came right up to me. I'm right in the wings waiting to walk into the ring, and he whispers in my ear, "Do you know what you're doing?" Right. And of course, I barely know what I'm doing. But anyways, I'm going to talk about a Twitter exchange we had where we were talking about the Love Brothers and hippies. And I said that they were basically fake hippies. And then I posted a picture of Sinatra wearing a Nehru jacket. And then you came back very quickly with an incredible photo of Bob Hope and Phyllis Diller in hippie regalia. And my question is, did you have to research that, Google that, or do you actually know where to find this stuff because it's in your head?
I knew where to find it because I had binge watched the Bob Hope specials. And they get worse and worse and worse and worse. And as he's pumping them out. When he stops doing films and whatever, they're like, all he has are these specials. And he's so detached from reality.
Right.
There's these hippie episodes. I did think, I will admit, I thought it was Lucille Ball until I looked it up. And I went, no, it's Phyllis. And I think Sonny and Cher are on the episode too. And they were like, isn't this hip? Like they would do that horrible. And, but yes, those, that was in my brain. That's
so my process was, I'm hip enough to know that kind of stuff happened. And so I was literally Googling Jerry Lewis hippie. I was just thinking of anybody. But Jack Benny, I seem to remember him wearing beads, but I couldn't find a picture. So I'm blown away by your pop culture. You're a pop culture phenom.
Even though I think the word pop is debatable when we're talking about this. Now. Well,
schmaltz culture?
Schmaltz, it's not even, I always say like half my demographic is dead already.
Well, that was one of your great responses when I asked you, what do you talk to other wrestlers about? Like, you just seem like you're on two different planets. And you said you go out in the hall and talk to the grandparents, which was hilarious.
That's often what I do. And some people will come. I feel like those references are like some sort of dog whistle for like the weirdest people. And I feel like you heard that dog whistle.
Oh, 100%.
I tweet about a John Knotts or a Victor Buono, and your ears perked up and said, I have a
Victor Buono DVD movie my friend lent me where he plays it. You've probably seen it. Be surprised if you haven't. He's a murderer and he stabs people to death. It's an old
The Butcher one?
Yeah. I think so.
Yeah.
Anyways, I haven't seen it. I haven't watched it yet. But let me ask you this. You seem to me to be American, but you're not.
I'm both.
Okay.
I'm a dual citizen.
Okay.
My mother is from New York.
Yes, I saw her in a video, and absolutely.
Yes, she's undeniably from New York. So yes, I'm both. So I get to go back and forth, which is nice.
That's amazing. I have a similar situation in that part of my family, my grandmother was from the Bronx. So there was a lot of American. My cousin Marjorie, you maybe never heard me talk about her. She wrote for Seinfeld. She passed away quite a long time ago, but she was my hero. Anyways, okay, so I'm watching the dog. I just want you to know that some of the more hip current questions are not coming from me. They're coming from John, the producer.
And John seems like a guy who has his finger on the pulse. He
does. Yeah. And I don't at all. And I don't pretend. Now I'm going to sound like Brock Linehan a little bit.
Yes, please.
Okay. Yes, Brock. RJ City.
Yes.
Who is he?
He is somebody. Are we talking about we're talking about that guy?
Yep.
Somebody who saw wrestling as the easiest, cheapest route to a spotlight and a microphone. That's really what it is. If I have to wrestle, I will wrestle, but very much as a means to an end.
That is so Succinct. Perfect.
Well, I've thought about it. I go, what am I doing here? You know, why am I wrestling this person who's going to kick my ass? You know, I don't want to fight. I'm not interested in the violence per se. I think I'm much better than this, and I would like to display it. And then, you know, that was also, and Kevin Nash said to me, you know, if we fought right now in real life, we had a street fight, what would you do? I said, to be honest with you, I would act like I wasn't going to fight you and then jump you from behind. And he said, well, he said, like, that's how you got to wrestle. You know, take that instinct and put it into a match. And then that, you know, becomes a character.
I met him, Kevin Nash, at a Comic-Con. He was super nice and bright, and I was blown away by him, actually.
He's deceptively intelligent.
Yes, as a lot of wrestlers are. Okay, so I'm going all over the map here. What is your take on the shoot interview, which I can't get enough of, watching shoot interviews of wrestlers?
Well, as you get closer to the sources, you realize most shoot interviews are often just another layer of bullshit.
Yeah.
And it's hard sometimes, as much as I love Dark Side of the Ring, and those guys did a good job, and I know them, they're very nice. Sometimes it's like, here's the real story, and they put a guy on the screen, and you know he's full of shit.
Yeah.
And he's just pushing his work, and I'm like, with this, it's this onion of kayfabe never is fully peeled. You know?
What a great way of putting it. My favorite is Honky Tonk Man. I love his I don't know why. I actually met him too. Do you have any favorite shooters, whether it be real or fictive?
One of my favorites, there was an old Ultimate Warrior one, and the guy was, I mean, shoot interviews are often just structurally bad interviews in general.
Right.
And the guy was asking him, you know, oh, this happened to you in 92. What do you remember about that? And what were you feeling? And Ultimate Warrior's like, I don't remember what I was feeling. And it was and like, that was like the most honest answer. It's like, of course you don't. That makes sense.
RJ City. Why City? Where's that come from?
I had two options. I was given two options by the guy who trained me, who is Ruffy Silverstein. He was in Team Canada. He was trained in the dungeon. He gave me RJ Hasselhoff, the wrestling lifeguard. And if a guy was knocked out in a match, I would dive in the ring and perform mouth to mouth. Or RJ Durrani, and I would come out to Hungry Like the Wolf. And I was not feeling either of them. And because I have somewhat of a New York accent when I speak, they would call me, hey, New York, or whatever. And I started playing around with that in my head. And I thought, phonetically, I was thinking I was RJ, because that's my name. And I thought RJ City, AJ Styles, like, does that sound okay? Rob Van Dam. I was trying to figure out the code of a good name,
right,
syllable wise, and I thought it fit. And it was one of those things that, like, is obviously a fake name, but not too bad.
Yeah, well, you could have said it was your actual name. I would have wanted to see ID, but
right, sure.
Okay, so when I've read comments, and John's right, I get so much hate on my social media, and you seem to get a lot of love. One guy wrote that you're way ahead of your time in terms of what you do with wrestling and where it's going to end up. Your thoughts on that?
I feel like I'm either ahead or like really, really behind. It's hard to tell. I'm not of the time, which is good. It's, as you know, I would say a lot of your popular comedy was prescient in terms of it was ahead of the curve. You know, I think
if it was accidental.
Sure, but I think you feel like you look at stuff and you're like, I don't want to do that. I want to do this. So you kind of close your eyes and say, well, let's see if this leads anywhere.
Yeah,
you know,
absolutely. Classic question. Name two or three or one influences that you would say. You're rather original, so I'm curious to know who influenced you.
In wrestling,
yes,
Jerry Lewis, Jerry Lewis, the person. I thank you. We set that up beforehand.
That's the Poison.
Even and blah. That's Dr. Julius Kelp. But Jerry Lewis, the person, when there's a great interview he did on Dick Cavett, where he's just a casual asshole.
Yeah.
And he can't not be. And they play his clip in the studio, and they come back, and everyone's applauding. And he said, you can't tell, but the audio was off just by a hair. What is wrong with you? And that became, he's really, really, when he's like that, an unlikable person. And
he's insecure. He's insecure. And he makes up for it with this totally verbose, obnoxious arrogance, I think.
Yes. And I love being so serious, because wrestling is elements of that broad physical Jerry Lewis comedy. So I enjoy acting like we're doing something really important.
So that's good. Any wrestling influencers?
Yeah. Bobby Heenan.
Love him.
Obviously. And a really good example of, sometimes the older wrestlers get mad when you try to be funny. And they say, wrestling's not funny, it's blah, blah, blah. And he's an example of hilarious and still the manager, the bad guy, filled his role and made people laugh. Like, you can do both. It's okay.
That's true. And I love that about wrestling. And I miss that about wrestling. Although, so David Arquette, how did you get involved with him? You've got that feud.
Oh, wow. Look at he's well put together. He has the spirit of a 12-year-old in the body of a rugged 12-year-old. That's how I would describe David. Somebody also called him prison ripped. That's his physique. There was a guy, I don't know if you know, a writer in Toronto named Ben Joseph.
No.
And he had previously written on a show with David, and they were friends, and he would come to the wrestling shows in Toronto. And I didn't know him, but he was a fan of mine. Okay. And David was looking at getting back into wrestling, and Ben said, if you want, whatever, you should be in touch with this guy. So he started tweeting me, which, as you know, is sometimes a mistake. And it blew up from there. And then, of course, we really bonded over his family, 3 or 4 generations of his family being in show business.
I had a big crush on Roseanne, I think, when she was in that movie about I think it was Gilmore, Gary Gilmore, was that his name? Yeah.
But his father was Louis Arquette.
Yeah.
Who was Leaping Larry on Seinfeld.
Okay.
And his grandfather was Charlie Weaver, who was on Hollywood Squares and would always...
Charlie Weaver, I totally remember, yeah.
But similarly to what we were talking about, like a Brother Theodore, Charlie Weaver was like a real life character. He would always be this old guy, right?
With this kind of hat, and he was in the lower right square, right?
Probably because he didn't want to walk the stairs.
Yeah.
But and then this is incredibly nerdy, but worth noting for your audience. In Waiting for Guffman,
yes,
there's a scene. Eugene Levy's the dentist. He says, "My grandfather was in the Yiddish theater."
Yes.
Cut to a shot of a still from a Yiddish play. That is David Arquette's great grandparents, who were actually in the Yiddish theater. They were doing vaudeville.
That's amazing. Are you Jewish?
No. Okay. But I think the New Yorkness often gets construed.
Yeah, no, it does. I mean, even that scene you did with your mom and the cat sort of reminded me of when Woody Allen in that documentary goes to his parents' house, and they've got all his Oscar there for Annie Hall, and they're still belittling him.
It will never be enough. Not that what I do is enough, certainly. I mean, even I can accept that.
Yeah. Okay, I got it. But still, it's that dynamic. It was reminiscent. Let's just say. Okay. This is what really has blown my mind, which is your babyface thing.
Oh yes.
Because I couldn't explain why I love Creechman and Ernie Roth. I can't explain why I like babyface. I'm hearing Katharine Hepburn, old Hollywood. What is going on there? Please explain it to me.
Well, for the past year and a half, I ended up doing, during the thrust of the pandemic, doing videos for WWE, comedy videos. I did a late night WrestleMania special. I was like the wacky neighbor down the hall. I had an interview series for a while. We were working on a bunch of stuff, and then they kind of came in and gutted the whole department. So that ended very quickly. It was unfortunate. And then I thought, but there was a time there when I thought, well, this is it. This is what I'm going to, do. And then that stopped. And I looked back to wrestling and I went, well, do I start? Because I hadn't wrestled in 2 years. And I felt very old, And then there was also a part of me that would have felt really bad going back and doing the exact same stuff I was doing before.
Right.
That would just bother me. And then I often binge old celebrity interviews.
No kidding.
One person I fell in love with was Van Johnson.
Van Johnson. I've seen him on talk shows.
Yes.
He's great.
Incredibly bitter person. Very fake, very bitter, very above it all. I believe the studio made him hide his homosexuality by marrying, and he was married to Keenan Wynn's ex-wife.
God, you are something else. Keenan Wynn, is that Ed Wynn's?
Ed Wynn's son, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Didn't know that.
And, a really crazy story. Obviously, a lot of repressed, kept a lot of secrets in the studio days. They were, wild, but made to look like they were angels. And because of that, when he just talked, there was this undercurrent of just bitterness and just weirdness. And I fell in love with that. And of course, they're absolutely Katharine Hepburn and Betty Davis.
Yes.
And that all came into this, and it just came out like that. And what I like about it is that it has a clear look and a clear vibe.
Oh, it's got a vibe.
Yeah, it certainly has a vibe. And I had written those and then just sat on them for a while because I was very nervous about it, I guess. And then I filmed them kind of all at once and then started like improvising as it. And I was like, well, okay, there is something here. And it is, very
Are you getting good feedback? I don't.
Yes.
Okay,
yeah.
good.
But I'm getting people contacting me like yourself saying I'm obsessed with this and I don't know why.
Okay. Good.
And a lot of artists, like independent artists, they always love drawing wrestlers. But I think because this has a distinct look and feel and, designers, they're like, whoa, I want to play in this world of, old kind of noir movies and things of that nature. And I have no idea how it's really going to translate to a show, an actual wrestling show.
You said that when I watched that doc on you. You talked about how sometimes you just got to do it and throw it out there, and not take it so seriously. And that's a home run as far as I can tell. I
have a theme song picked out.
Yeah,
this is an exclusive for your viewers.
Yay!
My theme song is the theme from Hollywood and the Stars by Elmer Bernstein. So,
what was that? Tell me what the Hollywood.
It was a show. It was like a retrospective on the old stars.
Okay, awesome.
And and I'm gonna try to demand that all my matches be filmed and broadcast in black and white. I am, and I go, what will that look like? And I think it will look interesting.
Oh, I think it's so creative and wonderful idea.
There you go. See,
I just want to see you pitch that idea to whoever the hell.
I know. There's gonna be a lot of amateur tech people that I'm dealing with.
Explain it to me again. What? Black and white? We got color.
Just lower the contrast.
Why would I do that? Okay, so do you think Hulk Hogan would get over these days?
Yeah, I mean, in the same way that Cena got over. I think there's elements there. Obviously, he wouldn't get over in the exact same way, but he had an energy. I mean, I've been on shows with him, and he comes out, and they just go nuts, and there's some connection there where you're like, okay, like he's doing something more than just what he is. There's like the intangible there. And I would also see it like doing the smallest indie shows with like Hacksaw Jim Duggan.
Yeah.
And people are sitting on their hands all night, and then he comes out and they're going crazy. I'm like, okay, we're missing something that he has that we don't have anymore.
That's kind of where that question came from. I think I know the answer to this one. Do you miss the managers?
I miss the managers, but I do, obviously I think there was a point where they were just trotted out with guys, and I think we could have trimmed a few away.
Yeah.
Maybe Kimchi coming out with Kamala wasn't that necessary.
But he wore a pith helmet.
And a mask.
Oh, and a mask. Yes, true.
They need to be used correctly. And when you play those old clips, you realize whoa, they were really, really central to characters and storylines. They weren't, I can't think of the Sheik without thinking of the Grand Wizard.
Well, he never spoke. I mean, he was from, Syria, supposedly. Yeah. I mean, there was a purpose for them. Wasn't it predominantly if they couldn't talk, do interviews as well? You had the manager.
And then, guys like that who really, just how there are very few tag teams that completely stick together now too. There was very few acts like that with a manager who was more than just a good way for a distraction or something.
Okay. Do you hang? Is there any wrestler you love hanging with? You said Kevin Nash. Is there anyone that you just?
Kevin Nash is fantastic. He's an old show business aficionado.
Oh, I didn't know that. See, I talked to him for an hour. We talked politics. But okay.
Oh, no. He's well versed. We've had long discussions about Cesar Romero.
Okay.
Which is wonderful, very enjoyable. Who else do I like hanging out with? Cole Cabana.
Okay.
Has that, similar comedy brain. Oh my God, I forgot about Danhausen.
Yes, we're going to get to that. We're going to get to that.
Oh, okay. All right. I'll hold off then. I've had a lot of weird people drop in and watch me make coffee in my underwear. Lanny Poffo used to watch for a very long time. He would never comment. He would just watch. And Rhino would always pop in. Another guy, deceptively smart.
Rhino.
Yeah.
Yeah. He was in politics too, in Michigan, I believe.
Yes. A historian too.
And a historian.
Yeah.
God, my brain's talking to you. It's just it's buzzing, and I'm forgetting things that I want to say.
Okay, calm down. We'll get through it.
AEW.
Yes.
Thoughts? Are you going to get involved with them? Have you been involved with them? Do you want to be involved with them?
I know a lot of people there, and they seem delightful. Anyone else that I don't know that I've spoken to, there's possibilities. I always just put my idiocy out into the world and go, if there is a call for it, there is a call for it. Maybe there is. We'll see. And another example is Danhausen's there now. And if you're idiotic enough for Danhausen, you may have room for me.
Good way of putting it. So you said something about heels that I really thought was interesting and true, actually, but it didn't work with whatever I do. But anyways, you talked about how if the heel comes in and they're angry and they're pissed off, it's not as effective as if they come in like, I'm the greatest, I have everything. Am I quoting you properly?
Well, my analogy is, if you think of, let's say you have an office job and you think of somebody you hate there, you hate them the most when they just won the lottery.
Right.
They come in and a car went by a puddle and I'm covered in water. Then you're happy.
See, I see myself as a heel. I said reverse heel. You said something else.
Anti-heel. Anti-heel. Yeah.
So as soon as I realized that people hated when I would talk about philosophy or the environment or any of those kind of things, I just went full tilt that way, right. and to a certain extent still do. But that doesn't fall into your definition of a heel, but then I'm not in wrestling. So,
but I do think to go back to, Kenny versus Spenny is a heel babyface relationship there. I think you very much cultivated the wrestling out of the comedy.
Oh, without question. Yeah. And my favorite episode that we did was the wrestling episode where I asked Tyson to cut because I wanted blood, and I bled profusely, and I'm so happy with myself about that. You know what? Let's do the John. We're going to throw some images on and just get your this is sort of the wrestling Rorschach. I don't know what you call it. Okay.
Oh, very nice fella. I met him at a wedding. We hit it off. He's been a wonderful supporter of mine. And I will say, his fiance owes me $10. His wife owes me $10. That's a long story. That was before she met him, so I'm not holding it against him. However, he's really proof that there's life after WWE. He got let go and then totally just turned it around. He's like, let's do everything. No rules. I'll go where I want, do what I want. And he's doing it.
That's awesome.
A guy that everyone thinks I am friends with and I've wrestled a lot and I've never even met him. We were supposed to a couple times and then they all fell through. Doing a wonderful job. Very entrepreneurial and understands the business of it all very well. He comes out to Yellow Brick Road and I don't like it.
You mean Elton John?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Ted Knight, a huge inspiration to me. I was on a YTV show called Splat-A-Lot. Yes. And I played a Viking, and this was like my muse of just a dumb. What's so wonderful is that you think he's an asshole, and then you look deeper and you realize there's simply nothing there.
Great.
Oh my goodness! This is Wild Bull Curry, is it not?
Correct.
Just another example of people do not look like this anymore. And if they do, they're certainly not paraded out in the street and put on posters. And, that real element of the freak show of wrestling.
And he was a tough guy, a real life tough guy, my understanding.
Very tough guy. And one of those guys that was, before the really big boom, but a guy who was so successful and probably not given enough credit.
Okay.
I was just talking about Vic Tayback. He was in one of those he was in the horrible Tales from the Dark Side, a wrestling episode.
Who was Mel?
Yes.
Okay.
He's
Vic
a manager.
Tayback? Was that his name? Vic?
Yes. Yep. Yes. He was a manager, and he was managing a demon against a Hulk Hogan character.
Okay.
A demon who came out of a portal. This era of wrestling doesn't exist anymore, where even the minor characters are clear. You know them, and I liken it almost to like the first 5 years of Saturday Night Live, where you ended up knowing everybody, and then even Paul Schaefer was the musical director, and that sure. The announcer, and they were like every single person was over, and that's a guy who made the most of whatever he had.
He is still one of my favorite records. He passed away not too long ago from Hamilton, Ontario, and what I loved about him was he never won, yeah. And I don't ever want to see him win because that would ruin it for me. And he had the leather. It's not in the picture, but and there was all this secrecy about what was behind the leather. Was there metal or something like that?
That was the best. Or when Iron Sheik would tap his boot to load it up, and you're like, "Can you just explain that to me physically?" Very interested.
And then the other thing, having seen Mike Sharp, because I went to a lot of wrestling at Maple Leaf Gardens, he was very vocal with grunting, and it made me laugh. It was funny. He was funny.
Yeah. He was a funny guy and a real, like a modern day clown.
Yeah, absolutely. So,
we got Mel here. We got Mel.
Oh, Mel. Sorry.
Yeah. Okay. I was just talking about how Mel Brooks is really lucky where most of his bad movies are completely forgotten.
What, the homeless one was terrible.
Yeah, Life Stinks.
Men in Tights was terrible.
Men in Tights. Dracula Dead and Loving It was not that good.
Yeah, I don't even know that one.
Yeah, and it had Steven Weber and Leslie Nielsen. It was Leslie Nielsen as Dracula.
Okay.
It didn't, whatever. Oh, now there's a gimmick.
Yeah.
Shall we say? I was more of a Green Hornet man myself.
My friend made out with her at a Comic-Con. She was 160 years old, but
I'll tell you who I met.
She still had it.
Met at a Comic-Con was Lee Merriweather, who was one of the Catwomen, and she was also Lily Munster in like the Munsters TV movie after
Oh,
the
okay.
TV show.
I know Lee Merriweather a little
Yeah.
bit.
And I
Yeah.
told her I had a crush on her, and it was just as she was taking a sip of water, and it startled her, and she began to choke, and I felt horrible.
Nice job.
Yeah,
I made Sarah Jessica Parker cry right before she went on the red carpet.
oh my God.
It wasn't intentional. I just mentioned my cousin Marjorie, who I brought up earlier, and they were very good friends, and Marjorie had died. I felt terrible, but anyway, she was nice enough. Oh yes, the Carol Burnett show, of course.
Vicki Lawrence, one of the few celebrities who will not answer my tweets. I've tried. Oh Lord, I have tried and tried. She has a really good episode of her talk show, Vicki, where Sting, Rick Rude, and Johnny B. Bad are on.
Oh well,
she has a really
I don't have any connections to her, unfortunately.
Danhausen is an unusual creature. I cannot explain his popularity. I do not understand his popularity. I've wrestled him only a handful of times, and yet when we've had coffee and underwear, he was a guest when we'd be on shows together. You know, very much an Abbott to my Costello. Unfortunately, he's just so incredibly annoying.
Okay,
but in a joyful way.
Okay,
he doesn't mean to be.
Are you okay for time? Just okay.
I'm great.
Okay,
Hit
good.
me with whatever you have.
Yeah, I've still got the pages here. So I just want to say that you said something to the effect of you don't understand why people like a certain era of wrestling and it sort of stops there. Am I correct in that? Or it's not that you don't like it, you don't understand it?
Yeah. Do you mean like my
people who say it's just the Attitude Era is good, everything else is garbage.
Right. And my thing is, no, everything is garbage. It's always been garbage. And you have to accept that you like garbage.
Well, would you like to hear my theory, my personal theory?
Please.
It cuts through wrestling, music, and movies and entertainment in general, yes. I think, which is when you're a certain age and you have less responsibilities in life. Like I've got 4 kids, married, like I don't have time. But when I used to have time was when I was younger. And that's the time where you get most into music, you get most into movies and because you just have the time to do it. Yeah. And so it digs deep into your bones, I think. And then it just stays with you. And anything that's not from that time is much harder to get into.
Right. Well, that's the SNL thing, is that everyone says their favorite time was when they were in high school. That's when SNL was like the best.
Yeah.
But also, and my analogy was, wrestling wasn't better when you were a kid. Wrestling was better because you were a kid.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah.
Yeah. And you're also stupider.
Yeah.
You're like, kids are dumb. And it was really easy for me to just accept Papa Shango the way he was.
Yeah. For me, it was my cousin would take me to Maple Leaf Gardens. I was 8 or 9 years old. And the original Sheik absolutely terrified me. And I had no idea it was fake. He didn't tell me. Or staged or whatever you want to say. And to this day, he's my favorite wrestler.
Yes. I feel like implicitly as a child, I mean, so many children play wrestle. And I used to wrestle as a child with my brother or my friends. And I understood you're supposed to hit them without hurting them.
Right.
I think there is a level of like, sometimes wrestlers are just the only people who are not admitting that it's fake.
No, it's what do they call it? The cognizant? No,
the dissonance?
Dissonance, cognitive dissonance. Thank you. Okay, I'm just curious to get your take on, there's 2 wrestlers I watched growing up and both saw live. I met one of them. It was wonderful. Mick Foley and Terry Funk, let's say. To me, I don't know. I actually believe that they're masochists, that they get pleasure from pain on some level, or they could just be committed to entertaining the people. What's your take?
I know Mick very well. And sometimes when I would do comedy shows and wrestlers would come to the comedy shows, there would be an awakening in their eyes where they realized, oh my God, you can get a reaction just talking.
Yeah.
He didn't, and a lot of them seem misinformed. And maybe Mick was one of those, because I don't think he realized it, he was just, this is what I do to make people go like this. And obviously, later on he went, oh my God, I can write a book and it can move people. I can do stand-up and it moves people.
Right.
We did, I was supposed to do a promo with him we did a promo, and then he was very rusty, he had a lot to do, and then he apologized. He said, I didn't realize that you were that good. I wish we had more time to whatever. So the next time we had to do it, he said, what do you want to do? And I said, well, let's sing about like Broadway songs.
Not to hear you sing. But in this wordy Beattown singing, they would still not care to hear your voice because I haven't charged it as you, my friend. You are a fraud. He comes down here and he goes on the show tunes. You are no show tunes. You are no Broadway. I'm telling you right now, I'm going to challenge you and see how much you really know. I want to see what you know. You're so damn good. If you take this microphone, I'm going to find it deep down and find a way to give me and everyone here, right here in Greektown. Phantom. He doesn't know Phantom, but we know Phantom. Phantom, 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 Nighttime, each sensation, darkness stirs and makes imagination.
And then I opened for him 2 or 3 times for his stand-up show.
Yes. Well,
And
I met him. Kenny and I were on the road, and he was there doing his talking show. And he met us at 2 a.m. at a Denny's, like just a salt of the earth, super nice, super smart. Loved him.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. This was a big one for me. I have a feeling you loved it too. Andy Kaufman's foray into Memphis, Tennessee. And
I have a lot of thoughts.
Okay.
As you know, Andy initially was hanging around Madison Square Garden in the WWF and tried to get all of this going with Vince Sr., who was having none of it.
Right.
And he became very friendly with the managers, Lou Albano and Freddie Blassie. That's how, like a Breakfast with Blassie happened. Tony Clifton seems to be completely inspired, if not ripped off, from luscious Johnny Valiant.
Wow, that's over my head a little. I know who Johnny Valiant is, but I'm going to look at him more closely.
I went back and I watched the promos, and you're like, oh my God, this is where, I mean, obviously, Andy uses it in a different way, but this is where it comes from. And a lot of people don't realize, they think Andy just did the one match with Lawler, the pile driver, the thing on Letterman, that's it. Guy was there for like a year and a half.
Yeah, he did the whole cycle, right? Where
Turned
the storyline with Jimmy Hart, it all played out. Yeah. Just so you know, my cousin Marjorie, who I mentioned earlier, she lived with him as a roommate before he was famous. So I used to call her in New York, and there would be that, hello, you have met Marjorie, with the foreign man voice. And so that's how I knew of his obsession with wrestling and Elvis Presley. Years before anybody knew who he was. She would tell me about him. Okay, so you hosted Wrestling After Dark.
And WrestleMania After Dark.
WrestleMania After Dark. You can tell this is one of John's questions because I'm reading.
It was it was a late night special I wrote for WWE, and I hosted it. WrestleMania was 2 nights, and I hosted it in between the first and second.
And where was it shown? Like, where was it broadcast?
On their social media and Peacock.
Okay, so how's your relationship with the WWE now, and how do you feel about the releases and changes to NXT?
I have a good relationship with them. They called me out of the blue, and they were like, do you want to do stuff for us? And I 10 years before that, I had a tryout, and they were very much like, we have nothing to offer you for what you're doing. And I was like, okay, that's fine. I'm just going to keep doing my stuff. And then the people there at the time were very open into like pushing into comedy, and maybe making it a little more Adult Swim, because they were offering so much content that you got to change it up. And everything we did was great and fun and hit. And the wrestlers I interviewed had known me and were very trusting to like just have fun like that. And then they came in and changed the whole department, and then everyone was gone. And like, that's the nature of how they're running.
All show business, it's like that.
Yes. And I was, for people who think like for WWE, that's unique, but anyone who's in show business or, working in TV, like that stuff happens all the time. Not that it's not frustrating and not that it doesn't suck, because it was terrible. Yeah. But yeah, I understand, it happens. And then you're just like, all right, you got to give yourself a weekend to be sad and then start working on other stuff.
What a great attitude. And the work should make you happy. So that's the good thing.
But I have a good relationship with them. And then sometimes they would say like, oh, do you want to co-host the New Day podcast? And I was like, sure. So I like being a real, there's me. And
I saw that last night. Yeah.
That we did because me and David were on his podcast. And that's in his podcast studio.
I loved your performance in that. Like, just you looked.
We did it in one take. David filmed it. Yeah. And then we got the wonderful Lee Majors was my punchline.
I don't remember that. I saw Lee Majors when he was dating Farrah Fawcett. That's one day when we have a beer together, I can go through my LA year. You'll love it.
An episode of People We've Seen.
Yes. Yes. Okay. So past or present, who would be your dream opponent in a wrestling match?
Well, I would have to say Roddy Piper.
Wow. Okay.
I spent some time with him. I did a movie called The Masked Saint.
Okay.
And it was in Sault Ste. Marie.
Oh, God.
He's in it. Patrick McKenna is in it.
I know, Pat. I worked with him.
Well, he's in it.
Canadian actor?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Yeah.
Sure. And Diane Carroll is in it.
Diane Carroll. Okay.
Yes.
Wow.
Who pinched my ass on set, which was sweet of her.
Very nice.
And me and Roddy were there, and there was a wrestling element, and that's why we were there. And I had known him. We did a pilot before that, so he was friendly with me. And then one night, he just took me under his wing and told me the secrets of what the fuck we're doing in wrestling on the level that is so beyond even what I am attempting to explain to you. Just, he's on another level.
Can you give me just a little example of something?
Yes. So we were in the hotel sauna, and it's about 5 feet by 5 feet, and we're both in black underwear. And he said, I want you to stand at the end of the sauna. And he said, I'm going to come towards you, and I don't want you to take your eyes off of me. So I said, okay. So I go to the one end, he goes to the other end, and he starts slowly walking towards me. And when I say slowly, it took him about 5 minutes to come 5 feet. And he's doing, Roddy Piper crazy face. Those eyes.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm losing my shit. I'm just absolutely terrified. It's me and him, just totally alone. And he gets closer and closer. And in my head, I'm like, he's going to slap me. And I start, my mind's going, oh my God. And I'm like, you know what? Fuck him. I'm going to block it. So I'm like, my body's all tense. I'm getting ready to block it. He gets closer and closer. He's so close that he's past my nose. He's like blurry. He's like right here. And he goes, this is where the money's made. It was all about, similarly to that clip of Creechman and the Wizard getting face to face, is that when you make something personal, people are drawn to it and watch it. And when you invade someone's space like that, like if you've ever seen a bar fight about to happen, when people go nose to nose, everyone starts looking at it. It draws people. And
did you instinctively understand what he meant when he said it, or did you have
No, not really. I was too terrified. But, he got into my space, and him getting here is what made it feel real, because no one gets into your space like that unless they really want to fight you.
Especially during a pandemic.
Yeah, well, that too. It was in the before times when we were just freewheeling in the sauna.
So you are an actor.
Sure.
You are a comedian.
Yes.
You were on Nickelodeon for a while.
Yes.
And now you're a wrestler. Can you, walk us through this fascinating evolution?
Well, I did it all at the same time. And at no point did I don't think there's any difference between the acting and wrestling and the comedy and the wrestling, at least for me. I mean, I understand, some people get different things out of it.
Yeah.
And I went to like an arts high school. I was very involved in drama. But always wanting to wrestle. It was when I was a kid, it was wrestling and the Muppet Show were like neck and neck to me. And they're the same. That's my other thesis.
Wow.
Is that wrestling and the Muppet Show, like, WWE.
I don't see the parallel immediately. What do you mean?
Let's take Raw, for example. It's a show about a show.
Right. Oh, okay.
A lot of time they're struggling to put on a show. There's a lot of backstage affecting what happens in the ring.
Okay.
And everyone kind of has their own act. And they're all interacting backstage, and it will spill over.
No, I see it totally now. I never thought of it that way. So you do your live stream, drinking coffee in your underwear.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit. Where did that come from? It just seems.
I was working at CBC. I was doing some writing stuff for them, and I had a web series where I did parody crafts. It was called The Cynical Crafter, and it was going well, and then I kept trying to pitch live stuff. And I thought, because you guys don't have anything live, do it on Facebook or whatever, YouTube, make it live. And CBC is another WWE type place where 40 million people have to sign off on one thing, and it takes forever. And it was taking forever. And I'm like, you know what? I'm going to so I tweeted out as a joke, I'm going to stream myself making coffee in my underwear. And Tommy Dreamer said, you might as well. Everyone else is doing stupid stuff. Like, there's no difference.
Right.
It's just as dumb as what everyone else is doing. And I said, okay. So I said, I'm only going to do one episode and see how it goes. And then I've been doing it every Sunday morning for like 4 years. And I believe I'm the only show in history to have Steve Austin and Mario Cantone.
Yes, I saw the Mario one, and both of them actually. So that's very interesting, and I forgot what I was about to say. My head is spinning talking to you. Okay, here's just a crazy question.
Yeah.
If you could be the star of any television show that has ever existed, which one would it be?
I would like to take over the Dick Cavett show.
Oh, wow.
It had a real length and depth of like, gimme Betty Davis, and she can't move for 2 hours.
Right. John and Yoko, and
yes.
You remember when he went into the Watergate? He went into the actual sanctum of the Senate. I guess it was the Senate. I'm a big Watergate junkie, or I was when I was a kid.
I'm a Dick Cavett man. So
it's funny because I think we part ways in one sense. We're both obsessed with stuff, and I became obsessed with politics, where I think you became a little more obsessed with show business.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Are you political at all? Do you like politics, talking politics, or you just?
I do. I also know there's a lot like I don't know.
Yeah.
I do a lot of paying attention to it. You know what I mean?
Can I throw some just the current stuff out there?
Please.
To get your reaction. Trumpism.
He blocked me on Twitter.
Good.
And this was, I think, before he got elected. He was tweeting something about CNN and MSNBC, and my reply was, what about WKRP in Cincinnati? And the next day, I was like, "Oh my God!" And that was when
that tells you everything you want to know about him.
Yeah,
because exactly. that was talk about thin-skinned. First of all, I don't think he actually did it.
No. This was in the first wave of him like mass blocking people.
I think we have probably a similar love of sort of bad entertainment, which I always thought wrestling was. That's what I loved about it. It was so bad. It was great.
I don't know if you're familiar with Stairway to Stardom.
Yes.
Yeah.
Dude, I pitched a fucking series about a fictitious version of exactly that series. Yeah. Kenny got me into that because his buddy, I can't think of his name, he basically had the rights to all of those old shows. And that guy, Don Costello, was that his name?
Yes, that comedian who did the horrible Menomina pantomime.
But he did the woman character with the lipstick.
What was her name?
Oh,
it was something Bosoms. It was like Miss
Bosoms. Miss Bosoms. I had a character based on him in this thing. I pitched it to Andrea Martin's sister, and because she was running, I can't remember the network, and they had no money. Yeah. No money. So this was low budget, but they didn't even have money for that. And maybe they hated the idea, and that was just their way to say it.
One of my old t-shirts is an homage to that. It's RJ City's Stairway to Obscurity.
There you go.
Yeah.
And what about that woman? Hairdresser is one of my favorite videos.
Hairdresser. My favorite is a guy named Dante who sings the theme from Exodus.
I probably saw it, but I don't
He's
recall.
got a pendant on. He looks like he's played by Will Ferrell. Like, it's that ridiculous of a character.
So you mentioned the New York Dolls. I'm a big New York Dolls fan. Did you see the Killer Kane documentary? That was fantastic.
I saw it when I was very, very young because my mother in New York had remembered them and said, you should watch this. And I was blown away. I had no frame of reference
cried.
to.
I literally bawled.
I did watch it a couple of years ago again. I was like, this is just heavy shit. Also fascinated by David Johansen.
Yeah, great.
And that turn of, doing the Buster Poindexter.
I hated that, but it was, I like the creativity and the breaking out of, because, even me in my small little tiny world, I can't get out from under the Spenny from Kenny versus Spenny. Right. But I'm going to try, it's like hitting my head against the wall. Also, one thing I have to say, the Brady Bunch variety stuff, are the disco. I can't find it on YouTube anymore. It's the disco dancing. And we all know that Peter Knight, was that his name?
Mm-hmm.
The Peter character, he couldn't dance at all. So they always had to cut around him, but he's forced to try to dance. And is there anything funnier than that? Okay. So Ethel Merman, that sort of blew my mind that
that goes back to the Muppet Show. That's where I first saw her. She was on the Muppet Show, and I was just, in love with this person. And she, like B. Arthur, they almost come off like they're doing drag because there's very strong masculine elements in what they do.
B. Arthur is, I always said that she carried Maude like Gleason carried The Honeymooner. She was incredible. Incredible. I never really watched Golden Girls as much, but I was a Maude.
I don't think she was obviously, I think, most proud of Maude. That's really like New York theater acting in a sense.
It was very theatrical, and it just, there, I don't know how they the production, but it seemed like it was almost like a play. Like it just, it didn't seem like there was a lot of stars. What would you say is I'm going to be wrapping it up relatively soon. Your favorite era in Hollywood?
I really enjoy that the turn of maybe it's like the 20s and 30s.
Okay.
I have to go back there just because they're totally in their own world.
Yes.
But you read something like Hollywood Babylon, obviously, which none of it is remotely accurate, but all the elements of what people are complaining about now are still present. In terms of the tabloids and, knowing everyone's business and, I don't need to know that this person's pregnant. I'm like, this is the structure of this business.
For me, it's the 50s LA. I would love to just go back to the 1950s Los Angeles before it's become this kind of revolving door.
A friend through David, her name is Allison Martino.
Yeah.
Her father was Al Martino, who played Johnny Fontaine in The Godfather.
Okay. Oh, I know all about him. Yeah, go ahead.
She is like an LA historian of that time period. And she took a bunch of stuff. She goes to estate sales, has a bunch of memorabilia from Jerry Lewis's restaurant.
Oh my God.
And Dean Martin's restaurant. And you're like, this was really the shit. This was like, you feel like society perhaps peaked.
I saw Dino at a Hamburger Hamlet just on Sunset Strip, towards the end of his life. And
he would go by himself, apparently.
He was by himself. How do you know that?
I heard about it.
Yeah.
He would often go.
Yeah, he goes by himself, and he had like 3 martini glasses. It was pretty amazing. Also, there's a place called Chai of Venice. I used to live in Santa Monica, and we were very tight with the hostess there, and she knew that Kenny and I were Johnny Carson fanatics, and he'd finished the Tonight Show, years had gone by, and he was going to go in for lunch. So she told us and seated us in the booth beside, and we were literally like just trying to eavesdrop on him. And I just remember him saying Lola Falana. Right? And that's
he has a lifetime pass to Orange Julius. Did you know that?
No.
Yes,
no.
Which is now Dairy Queen, basically.
There's an Orange. I live in Kingston, Ontario, and
yeah.
there's an Orange Julius.
Orange Julius.
Yeah,
well, ask
it's
them
in
if
the
they
mall.
know about the Carson thing. I'm sure they'll have some information.
Well, what about his suits, his clothing line?
His line of ties?
Yes, unbelievable. So, favorite movie star?
Oh my God.
I know. These,
What a question.
gun to your head type of question.
Favorite movie star? I would probably have to say Betty Davis.
Interesting. Okay. Favorite movie?
Favorite movie? Oh, probably The King of Comedy.
Okay, I got a bit of a story for you.
Yes.
My cousin Marjorie was best friends with Sandra, and I took her to the House of Chan, which is sort of a upscale Chinese Jewy place. Used to be at Eglinton and Bathurst, and I had dinner with her, just me and Sandra. It wasn't a date; she's gay, obviously, but it was amazing. And what happened was she got the part. Marjorie was close to getting that part, but they gave it to Sandra, and they had their friendship ended over it.
Wow.
But anyways, so this was
originally instead of Jerry Lewis, it was offered to Johnny.
Oh, Johnny
yes.
who?
Johnny Carson.
It was?
Yes.
I didn't know
and he
that.
didn't want to, obviously, because he was still doing the TV stuff. And then at one point, they were looking at Sammy Davis Jr.
Are you serious?
Yeah, which wouldn't have made sense.
No.
No.
All right. So here we are at the end here. What plans for the future? Do you have plans for the future? What's left for you to accomplish? What's your big dream?
What is my big... Well, I'm working on a couple pilot things. Me and David did a pilot that we're going to push around of General Idiocy. There were some cartoons I did a while ago that some people are looking at right now.
Awesome.
And then, there are some more. I'm always superstitious. I don't want to talk about, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
I'd rather if they happen, then I want them to just happen and then maybe explain them later.
Yeah.
But certainly more Babyface.
Yes.
That I know. And it, should be, God willing, popping up at weird shows around the area. Probably not even the area. Probably far-flung places.
Do you do stand-up anymore?
Yeah, I haven't done it in a while. I mean, I could. Mick Foley always does, ask me to open when I'm close to his area and things of that nature. But I'm like, maybe I can do stand-up as Babyface at this rate.
Oh my God. I would go on tour with you in a heartbeat and open for you. Honest to God.
Thank you.
Look, I have enjoyed this immensely. It's the old, do you want to go for a beer with somebody? You're one of those people. I wish you nothing but the best in all your endeavors. They all sound so funny and smart and amazing. Thank you for doing this. Thank you. You have been a gas. And I will only go for a Lime Ricky, but it's on. Okay. Lime Ricky. There he is. All right. Thank you.
I know I can be strong.